Welcome to the International Women's Day 7th Annual Celebration here on March 16th, 2019, sponsored by the American Association of Arab Women. Looks like we've got a few other, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, the American Association of Arab Women, and we can even be liked on Facebook. For the record, would you tell us what your name is?
Soumaya, the founder of the American Association for Arab Women. This is our 7th annual celebration for International Women's Day. And the theme for this year is going to be Balance for Better. So we're going to have a presentation of a documentary, and we're going to have a few speakers who will explain the documentary a little bit for us. Then we're going to have an entertainment and a few other things.
So what are we hoping to accomplish in general? I would assume that we're hoping to accomplish a better understanding of the difference in cultures and how the American Association of Arab Women fits into the overall Association of Arab Women in America.
Yeah, and we are gonna focus on equal wages and how the women should make as much as. Do you agree?
Yes, equal pay.
Gets paid just like you.
Absolutely. Well, yes, just like me. I'd even like it for you to get equal wages to white males. I'm a black male, so I don't get equal wages to white males.
You see, then we have to make a difference.
Absolutely, we have to make a difference, and we have to correct
have
those
to
imbalances. There is no question about that.
And we have to change the history and make it equal wages for everybody.
Yes. You say we've got to change the history. I think the history is the history. We need to change the current effects of that unequal history.
I am with you.
You are with me in that?
Which is in the future.
Yes.
This day where we're going to make the changes will be history for future generations.
That's right. So when our children and our grandchildren in years ahead are listening to what we have to say, They can say that these folks in this generation made a difference.
Yes, I agree. And that's what we're going to try to do today. At least present the problem, talk about it, and see what we can do toward all these differences.
Yes, and this comes at a time as well, just a day or so after such terrible things that have happened in New Zealand. I don't think we want to miss that there is still so much hate-filled going on in this world that we need to see what we can do to bring an end to that.
We should, because this terrorist attack was very bad, and it did hurt so many people. It was in the Jewish community before, regular communities, now it's in the Muslim community. But I have a big belief that we can all get together to stop this madness and stop this terrorism, which is now with this Islamophobia that people have. And they are scared from these Muslim people who are they don't harm anybody. Yeah, there is the other differences in Islam, but it's not even Islam. Those are different people who want to hurt everybody. But these people, they were doing their regular prayer, and they were just as innocent as other people. They could be Christian, they could be Jewish, doing just their prayers anywhere you are in the whole world. So what happened was a very sad tragedy in all the communities, not just in the Muslim community, that's why we need to get together and be one instead of being Christian, Jewish, Muslim. We need to be one because we praise the same God.
Absolutely, and I think this certainly shows us the similarities of problems. You mentioned the Arab community. I will talk about the African American community. I will talk about the gay and lesbian community. And there are just so many divisions that seem to be exploited and are bringing out all the hatred that's there. And we certainly haven't had any great bold leadership from our president of this country in helping bring us together.
So that's what's sad. It's very sad from a country who should bring the whole world together, spreading and separating everyone. It's we should be one, no matter who we are, no matter which religion, no matter which color. We are all the same. We are all under one God. So I don't know why we have to hate each other or why we have to create these differences between us. I believe that we are all one, which is we are human. Humanity brings us together. This species who needs to be together and make that brain work for positive things, not negativity and separation.
Amen. You've said it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy this day. Thank you very much.
So I'm really excited to be with you all today. Before we get started, there's just a few pointers that I want to give. I would like first to thank the video crew today, Julie Vestefano, Neil Anderson, and Sal Khan. They have been with us for such a long time, so I just wanted to give them a quick round of applause for coming out once again. And so this event is going to be recorded. It's going to air on NATV in April. It will also be posted on YouTube and Facebook. There are cameras right behind there, so a quick pointer, if you do want to take pictures or videos, you are more than welcome to. We just want you to be mindful of the cameras that are set up and to just kind of make sure to not block them. Before I get started with my agenda, I just wanted to introduce the president of AAAW, Saada Taib. We are so grateful for her and all of her efforts. I know when you guys do come in, it already looks put together and ready to go, but there are endless FaceTimes and meetings behind the scenes, and so we just want to take a quick moment to thank her for her efforts and all of the volunteers that are with us here today.
Welcome to our 7th annual International Women's Day celebration. I want to start by thanking the City of Malden for your constant support over the last 7 years. Also, I thank you to the Senior Center for hosting us today. Unfortunately, it's not easy to take celebratory tone today. Please join me in a moment of silence for the victims of the Christchurch Mosque terrorist attack on Friday morning. And I'm just going to read some verses of Quran on the souls we lost. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, as-sirata alladhi an'amta alayhim ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim wa la-ad-dallin. آمين. اللهم ارحم الشهداء وارحم موتانا وارحم موتى جميع المسلمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. We live a world now that is more connected more than ever. We use our phones to keep touch with the relatives who live down the street and across the Atlantic Ocean. Many of us do our jobs from our computers. Most of you probably heard about this event online. But even before the internet, we used the phone, and before phones, there were letters and messengers and stone slabs. We as species have been making connections since before civilization began. We rely on each other, whether it's small business owner who lets you buy eggs and bread on credit, or the neighbor you can rely on to watch your kids. We need each other. For us to move forward as a species, we have to move forward together. We have to support those who haven't had support before. That's what Balance for Better means. We need more women CEOs, yes. But we also need women who are not CEOs to make as much as their male equivalents. We need low-income women. We need low-income women to have access to the same health care as very rich women. We need to make sure that women are treated with respect in the workplace, that women are empowered to run for office, that women are allowed to make our choices about our bodies. This year, I want to ask all of you to work to make this happen. If you are a hiring manager, interview as many women as you do men. If you work in a hospital, take women's pain seriously. If you have a daughter, make sure she knows she can be whatever she wants, not just a princess, but scientist too. Today, we are going to watch a documentary called Equal Means Equal. This movie is about the way our country is not balanced. It has never been balanced, right from the beginning, when only white men who owned properties were allowed to vote. Today, we will learn more about what exactly makes it unequal, and hopefully, how to balance it out for the future. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you will enjoy.
Thank you. So before we also get started, there were a few people that we wanted to thank for also joining us today. It's kind of a running list, so if you just want to hold your applause until the end, and we can give them all an equal big round of applause. So I'd like to thank Mayor Gary Christensen, Councillor Steve Winslow, Councillor Barbara Murphy, Councillor Peg Proud, Councillor David Kamala, Councillor Neil Anderson, Senator Jason Lewis, State Representative Stephen Altrino, and State Representative Paul Donato. So the theme for International Women's Day of 2019, sorry, I'm still in 2018. The International Women's Day theme for 2019 was Balance for Better. With the hashtag A Balanced World is a Better World. It called for gender-balanced boardrooms, gender-balanced governments, media coverage, a gender balance of employees, gender balance in wealth, in sports coverage, and so this really kind of leads us to the documentary that we'll be watching today. Equals Means Equal. It is directed by Kamala Lopaz. She is described as an actress, a political activist, as well as a director. It is described as a documentary that offers an unflinching look at how women are treated in the United States today. It examines both real-life stories as well as precedent-setting legal cases. It uncovers kind of almost how outdated and discriminatory attitudes inform and influence seemingly desperate issues, and no matter how old they are, they still kind of run within modern day society. It's going to cover many, many topics, but the topics that we really will be covering today are discriminatory wages, international women's rights, female poverty, domestic violence, sex trafficking, and as well as female incarceration. The first part, I believe, will be about 14-15 minutes, and it really will be taking a really intricate look at the wage gap.
Had been done on men. The differences are dangerously understudied. Sex matters.
Women in the United States of America make only 77 cents for what men make.
You could argue
that money is more important for men.
We pay $1 billion more a year in health insurance premiums than men.
Vaginal probing, is this something that will penetrate beyond politics?
They are helpless without Uncle Sugar coming in and providing for them a prescription each month.
If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
There is no war on women. There may be a war on what's inside of women, but there is no war on women in this country.
If there was a war on women, I think they won.
The war on women is shameless, baseless propaganda.
Is it? Not only is there a war on women, but we are losing battles and rights we won years ago. My name is Kamala Lopaz, and I've spent the past 6 years looking at the status of American women and analyzing the effects of gender discrimination. And from rape to the pay gap to domestic violence, all of these things are linked to the shocking reality that women and men still do not have equal rights under the United States Constitution. In this film, we'll take a cold, hard look at the issues hurting women the most today. Let's start with the big one, money. Women are now 47% of the American paid workforce. 66 million women are working. But how are they actually doing in the marketplace? Pretty badly. 42 million working women are slipping into poverty with their children, and it's at every level.
Jennifer Lawrence was being paid less than her male co-stars, about 23% difference.
This really is a war against women. You have the attacks on women's reproductive health care, and then you have this onslaught of slashing all these programs that women who are being paid 53 cents to the dollar or 59 cents to the dollar or 77 cents to the dollar who can't catch a break.
Most women I knew weren't looking to catch a break. In fact, if they weren't making it, they figured it was their fault. Women are still making between 22 and 46% less money than men are, adjusted for their race.
I think it's a wake-up call to the United States that 1 in 3 working women in this country are in economic peril.
Bloomberg analyzed U.S. Census data and found that median earnings for women were lower than those for men in 99.6% of all major occupation categories.
Whatever the reasons, the overall effect of this economic bias is that across the country, women were living on the edge.
For women, I think now it's evolved to forcing women to exist within a really fantastical narrative, which is that we can have it all, we can have jobs. Well, we have to have jobs now. If you want to have kids, you better be working. Maybe you'll need 2 jobs.
The expectations of what they're going to do on the home front haven't changed that much. Meanwhile, there's a whole new set of expectations on the work front, so they're doing double time, and they're just exhausted.
In terms of pay equity, we are going backwards. The pay gap hasn't really changed in a decade. And it'll go up a penny, down a penny, but that is because men are losing pay, not because women are gaining.
I don't think men are properly compensated, you know what I mean? For the most part, I mean, you know, there's that small microcosm of the community, that small portion that's overly compensated, and then there's the rest of us. And women fall even beneath that.
Did you know that under U.S. law, corporations qualify as people? Come on, let's go meet one of our friendly corporate neighbors. Walmart.
If you can pay a woman 10 to 20 to 30% less than a man, then that's a huge savings to a company.
Walmart is the #1 private employer in the United States of America, with 1.3 million employees and 11,000 stores. In 2014, Walmart posted $473 billion in sales. But their workers was paid $10.65 but now Walmart on vacation. Even with an announced wage hike to $10 an hour in 2016, Walmart will still be paying less than other retail outlets.
Betty Dukes was the first Walmart female worker to file a lawsuit charging Walmart with gender discrimination.
I believe that there was a pattern of discrimination at Walmart.
The Walmart case was the largest civil rights employment case in history. Jennifer Wright is on the team of attorneys taking on Walmart on on behalf of the women. When the case was filed, women hourly workers earned about $1,100 less per year than their male counterparts.
And the gender pay gap among management was about $14,500 per year.
What it is about is a systematic discrimination against women at Walmart in pay and promotions, which often go hand in hand. So women are being paid less for doing the same jobs as men, and they're being excluded and discriminated against in getting and retaining positions of authority and leadership in the company. But we're not talking about a glass ceiling here, we're talking about a brick wall.
This case is already 11 years in the making. Court after court after court has actually ruled in favor of the women, but Walmart has kept fighting it all the way up.
Walmart scored a big victory today when the Supreme Court threw out the largest sex discrimination case in U.S. history.
It's very hard to prove state of mind. It's why we lost Walmart, for instance, as the biggest sex discrimination suit in history. We couldn't prove they intended to do it.
We wouldn't have to prove intent if they treated women like they treat other discriminated against groups who receive strict scrutiny under the law.
When federal courts decide whether the Constitution has been violated, they do it by evaluating what the government has done under a test, a standard of review. Strict scrutiny that is used in race cases is the gold standard in constitutional law. It basically says when government uses race-based classifications, we're very uncomfortable with that. Gender doesn't make that cut at all.
Race, religion, and national origin are all considered suspect classes. That is, groups that have historically been discriminated against.
In the area of sex discrimination, the Supreme Court has not been willing to scrutinize sex-based classifications under that high level of protection. Instead, the Supreme Court has created a sort of special intermediate test, for women.
Sex or gender is the only class that falls under intermediate scrutiny. Pretty convenient. Why? Oh, well, let's see how intermediate scrutiny plays out.
When strict scrutiny is applied, the litigant has an 80% chance of winning. When intermediate scrutiny is applied, the litigant alleging sex discrimination has a 50-50 chance of winning. So that is, they're just as likely to win as they are to lose.
The Supreme Court ruled unanimously today that the lawsuit against Walmart stores cannot proceed as a class action.
We have decision after decision coming down from the Supreme Court that seem to indicate that the problem is people using the laws too much. That we need to somehow make it harder for people to get to their day in court, rather than make the laws actually work for people.
It was simply too many women with too many different accusations. Justice Scalia called it unbelievable.
Justice Scalia said, I love this, despite statistical and anecdotal evidence. I only got my law degree watching Law and Order, but isn't statistical and anecdotal evidence another word for evidence?
A lot of people don't realize that Eugene Scalia law firm is the one that represented Walmart at the Supreme Court. That's Antonio Scalia's son.
I'm really lost here. Do American women have protection from discrimination in the workplace or not?
I happen to believe we have protections under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
We have a body of law that has been cobbled together derivatively using the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, its Equal Protection Clause, to grant us certain rights.
Those incremental pieces of legislation are the foundation of the modern women's rights movement.
Title VII is our main employment discrimination law.
And on paper, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 bars all discrimination in employment, including hiring, firing, and promotion.
But the number one workplace problem that women still face is harassment because of their sex.
So, obviously it's not working. Why?
There's no teeth to it. It actually makes better business sense for businesses to ignore it, because the few times they get caught, the penalties are very small.
I decided to talk to Lisa, one of my friends from Yale who went on to work on Wall Street.
They can always say it's something else.
And in my business, you don't usually fight them on it because it's a losing battle in a man's world right now. You might win a lawsuit, but you never work again.
The employment guarantee, which actually passed in '64, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, it's just a statute, and it's been reinterpreted. In fact, just a little bit ago, just a few years ago, the current court gutted it in what was called Lilly Ledbetter case.
At the trial, the jury found that Goodyear had discriminated against me in violation of Title VII. The Supreme Court took it all away.
But it was always interpreted Title VII meant that if you got a discriminatory paycheck, in other words, you were being paid less than a man simply because you were a woman, and you could prove it, that was a violation of Title VII. Then came the brilliant current Supreme Court majority, and it said, oh, wait a minute. Title VII meant that you really only had 180 days to file a case from the day you were hired.
So where did they come up with that?
Because there is a 180-day clause in it, but that's on the basis of a discriminatory act. In other words, if you now know you've been discriminated against, and it just happened, even though you were hired maybe 10 years previously, you could still file. But they said, no, it has to be from the day that you were hired, from your first paycheck.
Well, if you don't know it.
Oh, guess what? Lilly Ledbetter didn't know it for 29 years, and they ruled against her. She won in the lower court because it was always interpreted that each paycheck was a discriminatory act, and that it could not only go forward, but it could go back from the beginning of that discrimination, right? So they came along and said it had to be 180 days from the day you were hired, so they gutted the act. That, you know what I mean by gutted the act? They kept it on the record, but it doesn't mean anything. Because in the first 6 months, you can hardly find a bathroom, let alone that you've been discriminated against. We had to go back to Congress to pass the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which was the first act signed by President Obama, to correct that Supreme Court decision. That's what we've been doing for 40 years. You pass a law, then they gut it, then you have to reinstate it.
So basically, Title VII is legal Swiss cheese. Tell me we have something else. We have a federal statute, the Equal Pay Act. It requires equal pay for equal work. But what if you're comparing a secretary at a school with a custodian?
Why, right now, parking lot attendants, who are mostly male, make more than childcare attendants, who are mostly female. Not because we care more about our cars than about our children, but because one group is overwhelmingly female and the other is overwhelmingly male.
All of our civil rights laws are flawed. They're what we call complaint-driven. They do not compel an employer to do anything except sit back and wait to get sued. What the law says is discrimination is prohibited. It doesn't say you must pay women and men the same, for example, or promote women in the same numbers. How does that translate? The woman has to prove that she was discriminated against. The corporation doesn't have to do a darn thing, but let its lawyers drag things through the courts for 10 years or more.
Time to process, that's okay, we could kind of just keep moving. But if at any time someone feels like they have something to say, please feel free to share your thoughts. So we're actually going to talk to Marcel for a little bit, but before we do that, you guys know that we always kind of like to keep these things fun, so we do have a little game going on. They are questions, mostly obviously centered around International Women's Day. The first question I think is a fairly easy one, so I'm going to ask for hands to be raised, and I'm just going to pick the first person who raises their hand. People who already know what the question is are not allowed to participate. So the first question is, does anyone know the date of International Women's Day? Right there. Jose, go ahead.
March 8th.
That's right. Wait, do you want to just keep your hand raised a little bit and then they'll find you? We have a little gift to give you. right, so like I said, we're going to take a very quick break. We're going to talk to Marcel. Marcel Schwab actually lives in Malden with his wife and his son Liam. He works as a workforce analyst in Fidelity Investments Human Resources Group, so he would most likely be our best resource when it comes to wages and employees. He has been actively involved in the community and has recently began helping Jose with the first pop-up group gallery gift shop in Malden. It features work of over 60 visual artists, and it hosts an array of events and performances as well as art classes. So if anyone wants a new hobby, you can always feel free to drop by over at the gallery.
We have a new background here. And first, for the record, would you tell us what your name is?
My name is Nouza bin Amgar. I'm a Moroccan American. I'm an owner of Marrakesh Fashion and Deco, and I'm a member of AAAW.
AAAW, the American Association of Arab Women. Okay,
Yes.
okay, which is one of the sponsors for this this activity today.
Yes.
So you were saying you've got a shop in Revere.
Yes.
And the poster that I'm looking at here is is an example of what you have for sale. So tell us about your shop and tell us what this is about.
This is about Moroccan dresses for wedding, for special occasion, and I'm selling like accessories, Moroccan accessories, Moroccan dresses, Moroccan jalaba, and all this kind of dresses, Moroccan dresses. It's a special Moroccan dresses.
So walk us through. Are these all your design?
That's my design, but I do it in Morocco, then I bring it here.
You do it in Morocco and then
because
bring
we
it
need to
here.
do it. It's a handmade.
I see.
All handmade.
I see. And so just this one right here beside you, this very first one here. What would something like that cost?
This one, it's between 350 to 600. Depend how the fabric and depend if it's handmade or just a normal.
I see.
Yeah.
And the material, what is it made of?
It's a sari. Sari. It's from India.
I see. I see. So many of these are made in Morocco with fabric from India.
Yes, that's
and hand stitched in many cases.
Yes.
And then brought here. So someone would wear that. Why don't you describe the second one first? What is that one?
This is just a belt. The belt, it's a Moroccan belt.
Okay, the belt is a Moroccan belt. Yes. Yes. So someone
and accessories and everything.
Someone going to a wedding or a very formal activity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Exactly. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So which one of those have you worn?
The one I like.
Yes.
This one.
You like that one. Why do you like that one?
Turquoise.
That's a good
blue.
question.
Yeah.
Okay,
like
blue is your color, huh?
Yes, blue and red.
I see.
This one is my favorite too.
This is your favorite. Okay. You are a daring woman wearing red, huh?
Oh yeah. And never too expensive. The red, it's always good.
Red is always good. Yes, yes. So, what do you hope was going to happen here today at this celebration?
The celebration, we do that every year. Suad Akib organized that, and then we participate every year for International Women's Day. Just to celebrate, and every year we have different subjects. We talk about something different, and we get different culture, we talk about women and everything. Yeah.
So today is a day or so away from a terrible situation that has just happened in New Zealand.
Yeah.
You know, with
Very
this
sad.
hate-filled terrorism.
Yes.
That has taken place. Would you like to say something about that?
I just feel sorry, and I can tell in Arabic رحم الله كل ميت إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون والله يبدل مسحبتهم الصبر ويصبر الأهالي ديالهم لأنه هذا الحدث كان مؤلم لكل الناس في جميع أنحاء العالم. الله يرحمهم ويصبر الأهالي ديالهم. And toutes mes condoléances pour toutes les familles des gens qui sont morts, les gens qui sont aux hôpitaux. Je suis vraiment désolée pour ce qui est arrivé. Je ne sais pas comment appeler ça, c'est vraiment terrible.
I'm sure I agree with all of that. Now, would you translate that for me?
Yes.
Okay.
I
What
just
did you
say
say?
sorry, and I said sorry for the families, Arabic families, and Arabic. Some people didn't speak English, or some people didn't. They speak only Arabic or only French, and I just present my condolences to these people.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your background. Where were you born? Where were you raised? And how did you end up here in the Maki Center?
Oh.
Yes.
I'm born in Marrakesh.
Okay.
In Marrakesh, in Morocco.
Okay.
I'm a mother of 2 kids.
Okay.
I came here in 1995 to stay here, and I love to be here. And I'm American now. I work for a government job in airport, and I'm having my store too.
Well, thank you.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you, and good luck. I hope you'll find some willing patrons here that will,
Yes.
whether they buy today or at least know where you are. Tell us what the address is of your shop.
It's in a Riviera. It's one
It's in
or
Ri-
square. One or square. in a
One
Riviera.
or Square Suite B in Revere.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Okay.
very
Have a good day.
kindly. Thank you.
But he really does say that he loves Malden's diversity and is grateful for organizations like AAAW that work to make our community a more vibrant place to be. So a big round of applause for ourselves.
Thank you for having me. I do work in Fidelity Human Resources, and I have to say, after watching this video, I think I'm spoiled to work in an environment where women actually do really well. So I think there are some environments, but it's sad to feel like that's the exception rather than the rule. So being an analyst, I read a few articles this week after I saw this video because I'm like, I want to know more about this. And the one thing I learned that I want to share is, so it's not just a problem, they sort of mentioned this, women tend to get paid, in some cases, less than men for the same job, but I think an almost bigger problem, and especially in certain industries like retail, one of the articles I read was talking about retail and services jobs, is the promotion problem, and especially the first promotion. So if you are an entry-level worker and you need that first promotion to start getting into management, women get passed over so often that they are now behind. It takes them so much longer than a man to get to that first management position. Well, think about how that affects all the rest of the rungs of the ladder. So we really need to fix that pain point to really make a dent. And this article had about 12 practices for companies, which range from their diversity task forces to company policies like work-life balance. We don't want to make women choose between family and work by giving them enough time off. And then career development, mentoring, and so all these stuff are pretty straightforward. So there's tons of data now that prove that companies are more profitable if they embrace diversity. So this is like really stupid what's happening now. It's actually not a smart mentality for a company to have, but they sort of hold on to it. One thing that's happening that might be very American is we have a huge number of institutional investment firms. So if you invest in a mutual fund, if you have a pension, there's a pension fund. We have professionals that manage trillions and trillions of dollars, and they buy the stocks of all these companies. And they have huge amounts of money, but in the past they've been very passive about how the companies ran their business. But now they're starting to get really active. And one of the mutual fund companies that I know about, there's a statement from the president that just came out, and he said, "We invest in companies that we have determined are leaders in advancing women and gender equality. We invest in companies that are developing solutions to address climate change and other global resource challenges. We press companies in our investment portfolios to improve their board diversity, to embrace equal pay for male and female employees, to reduce their carbon footprints and improve sustainability." So In our capitalist country, I hate to say it, but trying to get the federal government to do all the stuff that they should be doing is often like pulling teeth, right? But when large money managers start using money for good and start using money and say, we're going to dump our 1 million shares of your stock if you don't change, that will get the board's attention. So I think we're seeing that this is a really recent trend. I think State Street just jumped on the bandwagon and they're a huge money manager. So anyway, I feel like there's, in America, our culture, we're so money focused, money talks, right? One question I have for you guys that I was just wondering about was, if you grew up in a different country, how does your country view work and gender? Because I feel like we sort of have a very American version of how this all came about, you know what I mean? So I don't know if anybody who grew up in a different country wants to just comment. Is it similar or is it very different, this whole work and gender thing?
I was looking at how I grew up in Morocco, and my experience was limited with my family, women working as school teachers. And it was very transparent. It has to do with which grade you teach, and there is, we call it a shell. So it is a scale. And then depending on which grade, how many years of experience, you know what the salary will be. So it was very transparent. So if you want to make more money, you have to take more tests. And you see, so at least that's how I was going on.
Were there also male teachers or
yes,
only?
Yeah, it has to do with how you score.
So it was equal. So it was an equal situation.
For education, at least that's how I was watching my mom making more money than other male or other female because she has to take exams. And based on that, it's equated to the number, and that's how you get paid. It was very transparent, at least. I don't know now how it is, but that's 30 years ago.
So, my name is Francis. I grew up in China, and at that time, during communist country, but communist dress like everybody's equal. So there was a slogan called "Women carry half of the sky." So it was never ever this discrimination in terms of the obvious mode that women are discriminated. So in this sense, the women are quite equal to the men. And has never heard that woman makes less money than the man. So in this sense, it's quite important.
I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, who comes from Sweden. And when she came here in 1962, she was horrified at the level of American lack of equity in terms of pay, and that a woman would marry to get the MRS degree, Mrs. So she married my dad, Frank Mannheim, so she was termed Mrs. Frank Mannheim as opposed to her name. So everything about from pay to how women were regarded. And when she grew up, oftentimes, even though she was born in 1940, oftentimes women would marry. The woman would be in the same profession as her husband. So that was much more common than she experienced when coming to the United States.
My name is Layla. I'm originally from Yemen. I remember after I graduated, me and one of my friends, and we applied at the hospital. I work as a medical technologist, and we were very close, and we shared this kind of information about the pay, and it didn't come to my mind that we're going to be different in salary or anything, but we get the same. In fact, after a couple of years, it depends how much you work, and you get raised. So I get more salary than him, which is, but it didn't come to my mind that I'm going to be different than him or something like that. So it's the same. We start the same. Yeah.
Sorry, do you mind if I want to share on behalf of my mom, who's actually in the audience. So sorry, Mom, if you don't want me to say this, but I'm going to anyways. For about 5 years of my childhood, my father was here. My mom, my brother, and I were in Morocco. My mom was an administrative assistant. I think would be like the best like translational job description. So my mom supported us off of her own salary. My dad was supporting himself here. My mom was supporting us in Morocco. 2 kids. We both were going to private school. We'd take vacations. We'd go out on weekends. And that really was based on just her salary. And we weren't living with family or anything. My mom owned her own apartment. And so, I mean, I don't know the exact number that she was making, but I don't think that a lot of people, a lot of single women, a lot of single mothers in the United States feel like they can support 2 children and provide for them how they would like to provide for them based on like an office salary. I think that's something hard that a lot of women aren't able to do. And so, yeah, so, and I mean, we were also involved in like extracurriculars. I did ballet, my brother swam, and so these were all things that my mother was able to provide for us off of just a one-parent household income. I think even now in the United States, households where there are 2 incomes from 2 parents kind of have to work hard to make ends meet. So, I mean, I know my mom was absolutely horrified when she realized what was going on and that she wasn't being compensated the way that she should be. I think that's a reality that a lot of people don't have.
Marilyn, thank you for stopping and talking with us for a few minutes. We're here at this event, which I understand you're a panelist of this event.
Yes, I am.
So tell us what you're going to be talking about.
So I come from a background of, I met Suad probably a few weeks back. We both found out we have family from Morocco. She's from Morocco. My mother-in-law is from Morocco. And as we started talking sort of about our journey about being women, working, valuing ourselves, how to speak up for ourselves, and just kind of culturally and also just dynamics. And so that's what I'll speak about today, kind of my own work experience.
I see. So you have a connection with this whole event.
I met my husband a long time ago, as I say, and he is Jewish. I grew up Catholic. And as I started to get to know him, I learned so much about other cultures. I realized his mother was from Morocco, had never really known anything about the Moroccan culture.
I see.
First, she was getting to know me, and because I wasn't of the same background, I think it took a while to kind of get to know me. This is back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
Wonderful woman, quite a story. And then as we started to get to know each other, she taught me about her cooking, about her culture, about how she came to this country when she was in her late teens, early 20s to leave an arranged marriage and to start all over again. So it was very admirable. So to jump ahead, I'm sitting at a core meeting and Suad was with me and we started talking, thought she was very nice. Then she said she was from Morocco and I was like, I don't even know what the word was. I was so touched and close to tears because my mother-in-law died about 8 years ago. And to me, I just have such fond memories of her. She taught me so much. So she and I were able to kind of form an instant connection, you know? And as you said, in a lot of ways we are so much alike.
We are so much more alike than we are different.
Exactly. Yes. But I didn't even realize, even learning from my mother-in-law, listening to some of her stories, coming to this country, it reminded me of my own grandparents coming to this country and hearing what they went through.
So where did your grandparents come from?
So on my father's side, they're from the Azores, which are islands just off of Portugal.
Yes.
And on my mother's side, they're from Ireland, so County Clare and County Roscommon.
Okay. So. We have this dialogue coming from our president of the United States, which is talking about so much anti-immigration, and here we are a day away from a big celebration of Irish immigration into this country.
And I hope this sounds okay, but when I was younger growing up, I grew up in a town that was mostly, very similar, either Irish or Italian. So to me, immigration was Irish and Italian, Portuguese. And then when I met my mother-in-law and went to college and that type of thing, I realized everybody has their own story. And my grandparents came over, you know, at one point, like the late 1800s, but my mother, and they came over kind of as family members and sent for each other. My mother-in-law came on her own with $30 in her pocket, not knowing what would happen, you know, but believing in a dream. And this was probably, I'm going to guess, the 1950s. So it's, and to listen to her story kind of opened a whole world for me. And even her cooking, oh my, Neil, her cooking was the best. I mean, I tried, but never, you know, she would open the cabinets and take things out, and we'd have to kind of chase her around and write it down because it was all in her heart. You know, she just done it that way for so many years.
What did you just said? Everyone has their own story. I mean, there are so many stories, and when we tell the stories and when we share stories with one another, again, we see the cohesiveness and
oh, yeah.
So much. Our stories are so similar.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I just think there's a tapestry to life, and I think that we're all part of that. And I grew up thinking the world was like this, and marrying somebody that was Jewish out of my faith. And my parents were fine, but just that expanded my world. Like I thought I was going to, get married, have Catholic kids, do it this way. But my world has been so different, but it's been so good.
It's wonderful.
So, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know the possibilities that life has to offer. So, yeah.
Marilyn, thank you very
nice
much.
To talk with you too,
and thank you for your participation here
thank you,
in
thank
advance.
you.
Again, you're going to be a panelist.
Yes.
And I'll look forward to hearing what you have to
good.
say.
Thank you. I appreciate
All right.
talking with you. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
All right. Oh, please go ahead. Can someone?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that what I think is cool is the state of Massachusetts this summer, they passed the Equal Pay Act, and it's a wonderful law in the state. It really talks about equal pay for women and men. So looking back, that you can't ask past salaries. That's why you probably know well about this act if you were HR. And there's 5 points to it. Thank you. And I just wanted to highlight that the Equal Pay Act was passed this past summer, July of 2018, and it is a law, no matter the size of the company, small company or large company, that it is now illegal in the state to not pay women and men equally. So if you want to learn more about it, definitely check it out.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, please go
I'm just going to say one thing. I was the director of human resources in a software company for many years, and like Fidelity, top employers do not, they have to pay women and men equally because of the demands for the job. Actually, women software engineers are in the driver's seat in a lot of these because there's so few of them. They've tried to get women into tech for many, many years, and they still have probably less than 30% women in the tech companies. So I think companies where the skill set level is high, I think nursing is another one. They can kind of demand a certain level of the supply and demand does come into play for some of these jobs, but companies like that do tend to pay people more equally because they can't get away with not doing so.
Mei Hong from the Chinese Culture Connection. And you and I are often here at activities that go on that kind of highlight the different cultures that we all represent.
Yes, I think each culture has such a wonderful, beautiful essence, and I think that for me, I discovered Chinese culture when I came to Morocco.
So tell us a little bit about who you are in terms of culture. You were born where?
I was born in Taiwan.
Okay.
I came to Morocco to pursue higher education.
Okay. And don't be bashful. So you came here to America to pursue higher education. And what was that higher education?
Well, I came to study English first.
Okay.
And then I went to Bunker Hill.
Okay.
I stayed there for 3 years. And then I went to Bentley College.
Okay.
Then now it's Bentley University.
Bentley University.
And then I finished my master's degree at the Tufts University in education and psychology.
I see. Tell us a little bit more about the Chinese cultural
Chinese Culture Connections mission is to promote actually diversity.
Okay.
To help to build bridges and to make people understand each other.
To help build bridges and help one another understand one another.
Yes,
Yes.
and we hope to utilize the Chinese Culture Connections programs, educational program as a conduit to help people to understand and push each other.
How long have you been operating?
The organization started since 1985.
1985. And
And
when
I-
did you join?
I joined the organization since 97.
Okay, and your position with the organization?
And then I took over in 1999.
I see.
And
I
we
see.
moved to Modern, so I'm now the executive director of the Chinese Culture Connection.
Yeah, so someone earlier said that we all have a story to tell. You know, there's so much that we have to share with one another, and I agree with you that as we share with one another, we find out that we are so much more alike than we are different.
Exactly.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Take care. Jason, fine, thank you, my friend. How are you?
Very good.
Well,
Thank you.
welcome to International Women's Day here.
Glad to be here.
And I know something about your story, so you are an international guy, right? So for the record, for those few people who may not know who you are, would you tell us who you are, Senator?
I am privileged to be the state senator for the city of Malden and several other communities in this area.
Yes, and so this is an International Women's Day. Tell us a little bit about your international history.
Right.
I think that's just so fascinating, so
Well,
please.
thank you, Neil. So that some people may detect I have a little bit of an accent.
Not bad.
Some don't notice any accent, but I came to America when I was 12 years old. So I was actually born in South Africa. And along with my parents and two sisters, we were very fortunate to be able to emigrate to the U.S. Back in 1980.
I think one of what I found so compelling, you were a speaker at our Martin Luther King ceremony back in January, and Senator Martin Luther King obviously centers around the civil rights movement, the icon of the civil rights movement. And your comment had, and I may be paraphrasing, but your comment had to do with having grown up in apartheid South Africa.
Yes.
You were able to see the horrors of that apartheid America.
So true. You know, I mean, there's plenty of racial injustice to go around, and we've had our fair share in this country. But at that time in South Africa, you know, in the 1960s, 1970s, well, even through the 1980s after my family left, you had a form of government which institutionalized racism. The whole apartheid government was based upon white supremacy. I mean, white people were the only people who had the access to vote, controlled all the government, all the institutions, and that kind of impression and injustice was left of seeing that up close.
Left an indelible
very
mark,
strong
huh?
mark on me, and
Yes.
that's why one of my thing as a state senator. I'm very committed to issues of human rights and civil rights and social justice, whether that's aimed at helping people of color or helping women
Or people of difference.
people are LGBTQ or just generally of difference.
Yes. Well, this is the day for us to share information together, to learn much more about one another, and to celebrate International Women's Day. So,
Yes,
Senator,
thank you very
All
much.
right.
And also, if I could just add, because I'm going later this afternoon to a vigil for the horrific shooting that took place yesterday at a mosque in New Zealand, and we all stand together, I think, in condemning these horrific acts of hatred and violence, whether it's directed at Muslims, whether it's directed at Jews, whether it's directed at African Americans or any group of people. So thank you very much, Councilor Anderson.
All right,
Thanks
thank
for
you,
your
Senator.
leadership.
All right, take care.
All right, so the second part of the documentary, we're going to talk about international women's rights and CEDAW. I'm going to give you a quick kind of overview because I didn't know what this was. CEDAW stands for the Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, just because it recently has come to light that the Constitution doesn't actually protect you from not being able to have equal pay. So this is kind of like a treaty that will help give that right to women everywhere. We're also going to, I think if we have time, go over female poverty, as well as the defunding of the Domestic Violence Act. Before we start, I want to give a very important trigger warning. When this starts, there are violent and graphic images. There may be some profanity, there will be some images of domestic violence, as well as some coverage of sexual assault. If anyone feels like it really isn't for like the soft-hearted, it was really hard for me to watch, to step up for a couple of minutes. The exit is right back there. Feel free to take some time. Or if you feel like this may be something that you can't watch, you're more than welcome to kind of just take a few minutes to yourself, and there are people back there that will kind of gesture you back in when we're ready to have a discussion again.
How is it that women are a group, which we're not really a minority, because in numbers we are a majority, but how come after 4 we still don't have the equal rights of women, and it's still okay in a way to discriminate against women?
Most economists and sociologists say that you need a 30% floor to really have an impact. Well, I think we have our work cut out for us.
If you don't have people making the key decisions about culture, media, politics, religion, you can't change things. Well, how do we change things if we have no power?
A constitutional amendment is a guarantee. You have a bad election, they can't take away your rights. It's the guarantee from one generation to the next. Women don't have that.
Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.
I don't know what the ERA is.
Still thought it was a brand of laundry detergent endorsed by my pal Chuck Norris. But most?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
I think it's on the older feminists. We didn't tell our story. We were so upset and hurt when the ERA did not pass. We all went home and sat down and cried. But we didn't tell the story.
In the original Constitution, they purposely excluded women. That's the history. We can deny that it existed, but it did.
This Constitution was written at a time when we had slavery, and the status of wives, the legal status of wives, was the model for the legal status of slaves. Because we were chattel.
The reality is you couldn't own property, you couldn't vote, you couldn't, you were essentially the possession of your father until you married.
There were many brave people sheltering slaves on the Underground Railway. But when Susan B. Anthony and other women sheltered runaway wives, then some of the abolitionists themselves, the men said, now you're going too far. They really do belong to their husbands.
The new 14th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote regardless of race, but only for men. Black women, and all women, were not given voting rights. It also added the word male into our Constitution for the first time. And here's the kicker. In 1886, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment was found to protect corporations. But women had a long, hard fight ahead of them, jailed, beaten, and force fed just to get the vote in 1920. Then, suffragist Alice Paul proposed ending inequality in one fell swoop by adding a few choice words to the U.S. Constitution to protect and include women.
Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.
The ERA was introduced in every congressional session starting in 1923 with no success. It was only voted on 3 times in 49 years. Then, in 1970, members of the newly formed National Organization for Women stormed Capitol Hill, demanding the ERA be heard by the full Congress.
We are people who are fighting for our very economic survival.
Congress Congress agreed to vote. It passed with flying colors in both houses. President Nixon endorsed it. The ERA was sent to the 50 states for approval. 38 were needed to make it law. In the first year alone, 30 states ratified the ERA. Presidents Ford and Carter supported it, the United Auto Workers endorsed it, and Hollywood loved it. This women's movement seemed to have America on its side. When journalist and activist Gloria Steinem co-founded Ms., a magazine created for and operated by women, the first issue sold out in a week. The ERA seemed unstoppable. When the deadline came in 1979, 35 states had ratified the ERA, 3 states short.
Because I was around when the ERA wasn't ratified. Because of toilets.
Talk about ironic. To avoid sharing toilets, women lost equal rights under the law. The scare tactics successfully distracted the public from the real issues, such as equal pay, job discrimination, and violence. Congress extended the ratification deadline until June 13th of 1982, but
time ran out for the Equal Rights Amendment today. The 24-word statement pledging equality for women under the Constitution fell 3 states short of ratification.
But it has never been what the people wanted.
National polls have always showed a majority of Americans favored ERA. But that did not stop the Republican Party from abandoning the amendment. Ronald Reagan opposed the ERA.
Until then, the ERA had never been a partisan issue. Both parties historically had supported it.
ERA supporters say they will try again, but even they aren't saying when.
I remember it happening. I remember Gloria Steinem, and I had Ms. Magazine when I was a teenager, and I read Mother Jones, and I really cared. I don't see that. I don't see that anymore. And now it's been marginalized. If you are that, if you do want to talk about those things, you know, you're just some weird crunchy granola person who's a weirdo on a college campus. It's just not in. Somehow we're not in.
The main way that movements are dealt with is to say they're over. And that's, you know, what we're experiencing now.
But the fight is hardly over. The fact is the worldwide war on women is a bloodbath. Lakshmi Puri is Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations and the Deputy of UN Women.
This is a new agency which was created to be a global advocate for women's rights.
New developments this morning in the kidnapping of nearly 300 schoolgirls in Nigeria.
Many times people don't even recognize, for example, that female genital mutilation is a form of violence, or child marriage is a form of violence. They think it's traditional practice.
More than 600 million women live in nations where domestic violence is not considered a crime.
This is 19-year-old Vdeos. Her own husband cut off her nose and ears because they dishonored the family will try to kill her.
بعد از یک میشه بعدش که سر من تا کردم جاکون از خواب کشیدم 3 جاکون در کمرم سر باز بعد از کمرم یک میشه این طرف یک میشه این طرف سیدی به بستم من میشه سروار کرده رفت دیگه جودم مداخل کردم همون دستاش شدم استاد شدم.
A 23-year-old raped and brutalized on a moving bus. Her intestines ripped apart after being violated with an iron rod by 6 men.
300 women came together in a protest march, something just about unheard of. They were demanding the repeal of a new law imposing harsh restrictions on women's rights. But then the marchers were set upon by a mob of about 1,000 men.
In many countries, women and girls suffer unfathomable atrocities.
When you have a population, 50% of a population on their knees, it is very easy for extremists, tyrants, to take over a country. They have a ready-made enslaved population.
I met with international activists, including Ugoji Eze, who had been working with the United Nations.
I went and spoke about child soldiers. Somebody in an audience who was an American could not really comprehend what I was talking about to me and said, oh, a child is basically a soldier. I said, no, they're forced. The females are being raped. You find that the Americans that don't know what's going on outside the United States.
Okay, so now that we know, what should we be doing?
Most experts believe the answer lies in an international treaty called CEDAW, the Convention to Eliminate All Forms of Discrimination Against Women.
And it is what is called the Women's Bill of Rights.
It is a visionary document because it looks at all dimensions of women's lives. It doesn't say we need to be equal to men, doesn't create a male standard for equality, but says what does it take in terms of public policy to make certain that women can enjoy all the privileges of being human beings.
Which means that there has been historical inequality. So in order to level the playing field, you need to give special support. For example, it says there should be 33% critical mass of women in parliament. The objective is parity, 50-50, but at least 30%.
With pressure from the United States after we invaded Afghanistan in 2001, we obligated that country to try to have 25% of its Loya Majorga or its national legislature be women. We don't have 25% of our own Congress.
It has been signed by 187 out of 193 countries in the world.
There are only 7 countries that haven't ratified CEDAW. 7 out of 194. There's Iran, Sudan, North and South, Somalia, Tonga, Palau. Oh yeah, us. The United States.
I spoke to a diplomat and I said to him, why is it that your country has not ratified CEDAW? To which he replied to me, well, if the United States does not do it, why should we do it? We take the lead from the United States. If they do it, we'll follow suit.
So what's the holdup? Can you explain?
Say, for example, the United States ratify CEDAW. You then have to go back into all your national laws. For example, the labor laws, the inequality, the unequal balance of pay, for example. Women do not earn as much as men in this country. Let's be realistic. You have to go back into national laws and change them to be in conformity with international law.
Where are the women?
Women's poverty rates are at historically high levels, substantially greater than men's.
And today, despite the Dow at historic highs, 1 in 5 American children go hungry.
Oh, all right. So I have the pleasure of talking with my colleague on the Malden City Council, Councilor Barbara Murphy, who is City Councilor of Ward 5. And we also often find ourselves here together at these different events.
Which is actually wonderful. I love this event. It's just so nice to see all of the women and men come together for women's issues, whether it's locally or globally. It's so important to us, to stand with the united front to make sure that, women are appreciated and also given opportunity to move forward with their lives, whether they're, a baby or an elder. So
yes, and you make a good point. This is good for women and men.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, us men need to be awakened in many instances.
And I think it makes women feel really good to know that their male counterparts, really understand some of the issues that are facing us and are supportive and are out there in the public eye, to basically say, yes, this is a great venue and we need to do more of this to bring issues to the forefront.
Yes, and I would just embellish that and say that, yeah, we just don't need to be talking to ourselves. We need to help enlighten others who may not have thought about the differences and the advantages that some group have over another.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are groups that have disadvantages, and not everyone is playing in the same playing field.
That's true. That is definitely true, and it goes by many different segments. Whether it's male versus female, whether it's
color,
ethnicity,
gender, yeah, that's right.
versus ethnicity, whether it's where you live.
Yes.
You know, it's not just about color and race, it's also about where you live and what opportunities that you actually might have versus somebody in a different community might have more opportunity than you would. So I think it's very important that we recognize all of the issues that play into what keeps a person down. You know what I mean? Because it's many different factors. You know.
Yes. You know, I often think about the blessings that I have of birth, of where I was born, and how I was born,
and who you were born
and
to.
who I was born to. You know, I was born with having two parents. I was born in a welcoming city, you know, that welcomes the differences and so forth. And not everyone is like that. I was born in a city that in a community that provided love and friendship with one another.
Absolutely. I mean, Malden, we're blessed to be in Malden, and you know, it's funny as you say that because I remember hearing you tell stories of being in the service and getting out of your comfort zone and going into another area where that love and respect that you felt here was not given to you.
That's right.
In those areas.
What do you mean I can't go here?
Right.
If I was in Malden, I could go any place. I mean, I have to sit upstairs in the theater, or I have to sit in the back side of the restaurant. You know.
No,
that was a cultural awakening from this black person who grew up in Malden, Massachusetts, to see that sort of thing happening in the South.
Absolutely. So
anyway, enjoy the day.
Thank you very much,
okay.
sir, and I'll see you Tuesday night.
We will see you soon. Thank you. So, Steve, thanks for being here, and thanks for spending a few moments talking with us. And it's so nice to see the diversity of people that are here today.
Very good. It's a great day, not only for International Women's Month, but it's great to celebrate the diversity in Malden, and it's something I brag about when I'm at the House of Representatives. And but these events are important for me too, because the more people I meet from our community, the more I get to know about our different cultures, so I can represent everyone just as well. So
great point. Great point. Yeah, I was talking with somebody earlier who were talking about how an event like this brings people who represent different communities.
Right.
You know, I mean, I represent the African American community. I know you've been such a leader in the Italian American community in St. Rocco's and on the city council and in education, and now as state representative. And we need to know more about what we don't know.
Right. Especially where I deal with so much legislation or budget items, how these legislations or budgetary items affect different people, whether they're upper income, middle income, lower income, different cultures, religious beliefs, you name it. We get gender equality. We've been doing a lot about sexual orientation equality, you name it. But I believe the only real way to understand that is to get to know the people.
Absolutely. And this comes on, having said all that, this comes on the heel of a horrific incident that took place in New Zealand just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it just shows you, I think, the sad thing is how much hate there is out there, but more than hate too is ignorance. And I think when you come to events like this, you learn more about people, more about issues. And when we educate people, I'm not saying just sitting in a schoolhouse, I'm talking about educating, whether it's at a nice event like this, we get to understand and appreciate people more. And once we become less ignorant, maybe the hatred will dissipate a little, because that's what that incident in New Zealand was all about. It's that hate, that ignorance, and it's sad.
And so we all have a part to play in changing that. And the more we know about our differences, the more we recognize that we have much more in common than we do have as differences.
Absolutely.
So,
thanks
Representative,
for all your work,
thank you for all that you do. Appreciate it.
So we're going to talk to Marilyn for a few minutes. Marilyn has 30 years of classroom experience teaching grades from kindergarten up until grade 8. And then in 2012, she decided to start her own business and become a special education advocate because of her desire to ensure that students of all abilities have access to the same opportunities of education, no matter which community they resided in. She specializes in working with students with emotional disabilities, behavioral challenges, ADHD, nonverbal learning disabilities, as well as verbal learning disabilities, students on the autism spectrum, as well as students who have experienced trauma. She is she's the president of the Malden Special Education Parent Advisory Council for 11 years, and is currently on the board of directors for St. Anne's Home and School in Lewin. She lives with her husband Ed in Malden and 2 of their boys, who she says have taught her more in life than she ever expected. So we're just gonna talk to Marilyn for a few minutes.
Thank you for the nice introduction. My name is Marilyn Andrews. I'm a proud resident of Malden for over 30 years. I'm very happy to be here, and mostly because of the university. I'm here today to speak to you about my journey in reaching for my dreams and a life of meaning and purpose, while navigating the challenges of being a woman and learning my worth personally and professionally. I first attended the core meeting here at the Senior Center on Wednesday, February 27th. I joined a discussion that was in progress. After a few minutes, a woman next to me started to tell me of an experience with one of her daughters in high school. She told me she was from Morocco. I gasped and touched my heart. I told her my mother-in-law, Solange Benchatri Andrews, was from Rabat, Morocco. My new friend Suad told me she was from Rabat. Suad and I started to share our stories and memories of Moroccan cooking. I felt an instant connection with Suad and back to my mother-in-law, of blessed memory. I was so excited to speak with someone who had an experiential connection with my husband's Ed's mother. After we had spoken for a few minutes, Suad invited me today to participate on the panel. She touched me, since we had only been speaking for a few minutes, and she felt I had a story to share. I'm very happy to be part of today's program, but also when she said it, I was like nervous to contribute. As a woman who first started her career teaching in parochial schools, I always felt very lucky to get a job and did not flinch at the salary. I thought it was the company's job to tell me what I was worth, not the other way around. For my first school year in the 1980s, I signed a contract as a full-time teacher for $8,300, payable over a period of 12 months. In addition to my $8,300 salary, I was financially responsible for the classroom materials and any workshops I would attend. I remember feeling this is what I should do for a job and did not deserve to ask for anything more. It was my job, I felt, was to make the salary work. As the years went on and I continued teaching, I saw many of my colleagues move to other schools with a more competitive salary. But I felt, for some reason, that I was not of the same caliber, and therefore should just accept the salary I was given. In addition, I also worked in a retail store while I was teaching. This salary supplemented my teaching paycheck. At this job, I started at minimum wage and slowly received raises with my annual reviews. After being in this store for 8 years, I was promoted to the position as assistant store manager for the night and weekend schedule. For the first 6 months of this new assignment, there was no talk of an adjustment of a salary from a cashier to that of store management. But I could still hold the responsibility of being the go-to for any issues and problems that came up in the store with employees, customers, store security, fixing the NCR cash registers, and at a moment's notice, anything that would come up. I just accepted the job and was very flattered that I was promoted to store management. I worked in this office with 3 men in my age group who were my friends. We were always very supportive and honest with each other. They coached me when it came time for my annual review as to the raise I should ask for. They shared that the quality of my work dictated that I should be paid at a comparable rate. Their support meant a lot to me. I had been reluctant to ask my boss for a raise, both because of some inappropriate comments made to me and my ability to acknowledge my value in the workplace. He would refer to me continuously as dear. My nature is to handle conflict and other difficult interactions more effectively by using my sense of humor. So after a while of being addressed as dear, my response was, I don't see any antlers coming from my head, do you? From that point on, he never called me dear. Shortly after that, we had a discussion about my salary, and I received a well-deserved increase that was comparable with my responsibilities and similar to what others doing the same job had. But this did not end. I still had to listen to comments that were sexist and inappropriate. At the end of each of my shifts, I left my boss a written summary of what transpired during the day so that he could review. At the beginning of each subsequent shift, he would say to me, "Leave me a love letter." I hated this. It was so unsure how to address it. So even though he stopped calling me dear, he found other ways that made me feel very inferior and unhappy. Although I learned over time to address this more effectively in real time, I never had a full sense of confidence working for somebody who today might be part of the Me Too movement. Now here I am before you all sharing my story. My husband Ed and I are the parents of 2 boys, 20 and 16. When our oldest son had his first pediatrician visit, our family doctor said, "He will teach you everything you need to know." I wasn't quite sure what he meant by this, but I figured I'll get it someday. I started to understand this more clearly after my youngest son was diagnosed with dyslexia, which is difficulty reading basically, and also some mental health issues in being on the autism spectrum at about 3 years of age. I dove headfirst to do whatever I could do to provide him with supports and accommodations that he needed to be part of our community here in Malden. I started to read anything and everything about the special education process and regulations, as well as digesting information about his diagnoses. I gave away a lot of free advice and research links to help others get free. I realized that I could take my son's experience and make my own background as an educator and began to see helping other families navigate the special ed process as my own business. My early experiences learning to speak up for myself with guidance of colleagues and supervisors have helped to inform my experiences advocating for families with children with special needs. Working with children of all ages and investigating ways to help them learn has always been a sincere passion of mine. I take the wisdom of my mother to heart, as she always said to me, that if you do something you enjoy for a job, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, after a number of years of sorting this out, I had decided to take the training to become a special education advocate through the Federation of Children with Special Needs in Boston. I had wanted to become a special education advocate since my days at Salem State as an education major. I felt I had training, the knowledge, the business sense, and good hands-on experience with customer service. When my colleagues were charging $75 to $150 an hour, I started my practice by charging $25 an hour. I was concerned about charging people too much because if I did, I would not be hired, or I felt I honestly wasn't worth a fair amount. I thought I had to prove to myself before I could sign myself a fair salary. With my earlier experiences and as I gained knowledge, I felt I should give myself a raise that matched my value and the value families could learn from me and was similar to other advocates. It took several years of serving my clients effectively in order to get the pay rate matching my experience and my skills. In summary, I feel that I've grown as a woman in my role advocating for the special needs population in our community. I would not be here without the guidance of many people, men and women in my life, who have helped shape my values and contributed to the fiber of my being, and have allowed me to assist families in getting the resources to which they are entitled according to state and federal law. So I guess I had 1 or 2 questions picked out, but after seeing this and just hearing what everybody had to say, I have 2 questions. One, the experience of discrimination and how you first became aware of this, because when that happened to me in my regional environment, I thought it was normal. I never questioned it, and I worked there for 15 years. And then how do we level the playing field for men and for women too? So any response? I'd love to hear what you have to say.
So I recently graduated. So I just kind of got thrown into like interviewing and salaries and like money that seemed like a lot. And it was just like, I don't know how to manage money that's like this big.
Right.
So when I'd be sitting at interviews and I'd be like, you're going to be making blah, blah, blah over 12 months and this is your pay time off and yada, yada, yada. I just like didn't know. But one thing I learned that was very helpful but very hard to do was to just be like, no. Thankfully, I think within our generation it's very different. We're exposed to a lot, and so I had a lot of friends being like, just say no. And so I interviewed at this place, and I really liked it. It was a great environment, but the pay that they offered me was basically the pay that I was making without a degree. And it was legitimately heartbreaking for me to say no, because I was like, if I say no, I will get nothing else.
Right.
And sometimes I think the best thing to do for yourself is just to say no and speak up. So when I got my offer letter, they broke down my salary to an hourly basis. And when I saw it, I was just like, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. I was just like, if you can offer me something more, then that's a conversation I'm willing to have. I was just like, but if this is where you're kind of capping my salary, there's no way that I can accept this. And when I did that, I was just like, well, jobs are hard enough to find. I'm just graduating, I have no experience. And it felt like, that's it, like I'm gonna turn this down and then I'll probably never get a job that I like, that I'm gonna enjoy and that's gonna pay me enough. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. But it's funny that that's mentioned, because sometimes I do find myself sitting in my office and being like, I wonder if my coworker gets paid more. And I feel like everyone is having such a hard time breaking down these barriers of like money not being taboo. Like, asking if you're being paid less than your coworker shouldn't be that big of a deal, because realistically, you just want to fight for yourself. So I have a job that I love, with coworkers that I like, and a pay that seems fair. But I always do find myself thinking, am I being taken advantage of?
Boy, that's such a good point, and I think it shows the change in generations too, because I never would have said that.
Yeah,
You know, so good for you that you were able to go that next step.
I mean, it was scary and it was hard.
Oh, sure.
But realistically, I think when you don't stand up for yourself, you really are just allowing yourself to be taken advantage of.
Right. And I think for me, some things I realized afterwards too.
Yeah.
You know, like, because there is that thing of getting a job.
Yeah, and I think just giving yourself that self-worth. I know you did mention a lot that, you felt like, well, maybe I'm not good enough for this.
Right.
But what makes you not qualified? You got the degree, you have the experience, and so it really just feels like this breaking down of capable, accomplished women. That kind of really just benefits everyone else around you, and not you. Does anyone else have anything to share? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
We have several issues. So solving this problem is not easy, and we have to go to the underlying causes of the problem. My observations since I started working in the US is that, especially in fields where there are predominantly females, they don't speak up, and that's the norm. So to me, to be able to speak up, you can't start when you're an adult. You have to teach women or girls very early on to be able to negotiate and to speak up. So waiting until you start working, I think it's too late. That's my observation. So you can empower, you can educate, but it doesn't happen because it's just, it's drilled in the brain that they cannot speak up. So that's an issue. And one of the solutions we should start with is transparency. Okay, like I said, in the case of my mom, we know what an elementary school teacher makes. You know what a secondary school teacher makes. So it's very transparent. So certain jobs, there should be transparency in how we pay people. So we can start with that. But But for us to expect women to negotiate at a later age, I think it's sometimes not realistic.
I am Teachers Matter because I'm also an educator, and just recently you have seen the strikes around the United States about, the pay raise, and we need to elevate the status of teachers around the world and globally, and I'm a global teacher also. We're trying to do that globally. But teaching is a noble profession, but I was always underestimated and underpaid. But now things are changing, and I see a movement now, and I'm very happy to see that. And also negotiating with salary. Teachers are negotiating more than before, they were happy to have a job. Not in the public schools, or even in private schools, we are negotiating our salaries now.
All right, thank you so much for your comments. So we're going to watch the third part, I believe. Oh, actually, no, we're going to do a question. I'm going to try to word this question as best as possible and in the least confusing manner as possible. Does anyone know when the first annual International Women's Day that was hosted by AAAW was? Go ahead. It was. Do you know the year? Yeah. Thank you.
Come on, join us. That's right.
Yeah, it's my buddy.
Well, come closer here. Okay.
I'm breaking you out of your comfort zone, right?
Are you out of your comfort zone?
Definitely.
You definitely are. Well, we'll make you feel relaxed. What brings you here today?
My mom came, so I kind of just tagged along. Yeah.
Is this your mom?
No.
Oh.
We're buddies.
You're buddies. Okay. Okay. You decided, or got dragged along, and that when what you?
Yeah, it was choice, but
Yeah. So you didn't put up too much resistance, did you? You said, no, this is International Women's Day, and you're a woman, so you want to be here and learn more. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And how old are you?
12.
12. And you go to so you're in the what grade?
7th.
At where?
At ISB.
Okay. And
International, what does that stand for?
International School of Boston.
International School of Boston. Okay.
And she's fluent in French. So that's one of... Marie, bien sûr.
That's all I know. That's all I know.
Well, you did pretty well there.
Oh, did it sound like I just rolled off my tongue like I knew what I was talking about? Oh.
So I will say Cordelia is quite community involved, and in fact she was one of our youngest volunteers at the gallery.
I see.
So she was an enthusiastic and competent participant in our operation there. Yes.
Yes. And so what do you think about an event like today?
Well, for a number of reasons, it's super important. Number one, it brings a variety of people together, focused on women, celebrating women from all over the world and their journey. Secondly, it's one of the hallmarks of the American Association for Arab Women, and they're such a community-minded force, and we so appreciate that. And then thirdly, the topic for today is this documentary, which is about equality, women's equality, which is such an important topic, and we're not done with our journey on that front yet. Mm-hmm. So it's important to continue that conversation.
Yes. Well, ladies, enjoy today. I'm sticking my hand out here to shake it with you. Enjoy. Thanks for spending a few moments with me. Okay, thank you very much.
We have one more question that's going to be played after this third part, and then there's also some entertainment pieces that are going to be happening if you guys just want to stick around. Before we play this, there's just something very small that I want to mention. I don't know if the third part will cover a lot about female poverty, but I do know that there is a WICS table out there. Sharon, the community liaison, is here to answer any questions or give you any resources that you feel like you may need. They also do have an office, I believe it is on Commercial Street in Boston. If any of you work 9 to 5s and feel like Commercial Street in Malden, not Boston. If any of you work office hours and feel like you can't make their business hours, I do have her email. If anyone wants to touch base with me, I'd be more than happy to share it with you. But I know that they may be here for another 20 minutes. They may still be here after the event is done. But I did just want to let you know that that resource is there for anyone who feels like they may use it, and please don't shy away from stepping up if you need to speak with them a little bit. Also, another side note, the trigger warning is still in effect in case anyone needs to step out.
A growing group of organizations determined to move the ball forward on women's rights here at home. Jessica Neuwirth is the president of the new ERA Coalition.
It's when 175 countries have either a sex equality provision in their constitution or a prohibition of discrimination on the basis of sex. One of the arguments made against CETA is that it's a backdoor to the ERA. So that's in part why I'm looking at the ERA and saying, well, let's go through the front door. Why not? Let's go through both doors.
Do I see if women are treated differently than men in society? I've given that a lot of thought, and yes, we are treated differently, and I don't know that that's always a bad thing. As long as we're kind of treated, we're equal, but we're not really the same. We are different, and we have different strengths, and we have different weaknesses. I think, though, that in terms of whether or not, we can legislate our way out of some of these biases that I've seen over the years and continue to see, I don't think so. We have sufficient law to give us equal rights and to, to pursue anything that we want to pursue.
Did you know that men and women do not have equal rights under federal law?
Which federal law? No, I didn't.
Recently, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia said that women are not explicitly protected under the Constitution. They are not equal under the Constitution. They were not meant to be equal under the Constitution. And if the society has changed, then the Constitution must be changed to reflect that. My thought is that the fact that you don't know that, Americans don't know that, and the fact that the Constitution is the foundational law document that all of our laws come from, extrapolate that out, throw 200 years on that, and bubble it up, and this is what we're seeing. And to my mind, when you get at the root of that, it's not going to be tomorrow, but these things will start to filter out.
Yeah, perhaps. No, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, and then you're right. You make a good point that the fact that I don't know that, that says a lot too.
The Equal Rights Amendment would improve life for women and men in many, many, many countless specific ways.
It's not a women's rights amendment, but it's an equal rights amendment so that men would benefit from these laws, especially when it comes to their private lives involving their families and their children.
The most important thing that we'll do, it will set the principle in stone, and then it will be a starting point.
Whether it's the high school team getting Title IX funds, adequate uniform and support for travel, whether it's the rape victim who expects to have a rape kit tested.
The presence of an ERA significantly increases the likelihood of a court applying a higher standard of review, which in turn significantly increases the likelihood of a decision that favors the litigant who's alleging sex discrimination. That's very, very important and valuable.
Dr. King once said that we are all tied together in a single gauntlet of destiny. And he went on to say that we are interdependent and we're interconnected. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Until women have an even playing field, the nation has not lived up to its high creeds.
I see all of these issues working together as a web, of kind of an invisible web that we don't know what it is, but it's there. And And I think that ERA could be the thing that sort of pulls the web apart a little bit.
I agree, absolutely. You're 100% right that all these issues are connected. So I think the simplest paradigm for me is to say it's a circle. Our paradigm and the original paradigm of the human species and the world, there's no straight line in nature, right, is the circle. And the patriarchal, racist, nationalistic, whatever you want to call it, paradigm is a pyramid, a hierarchy. So if we can just remember that you and I, nature, everybody, we are linked. We are not ranked. We are linked.
I think that it's going to require a new dedicated civil rights movement, led by women and our allies, to take control to reframe the debate. The majority of parents in America are single mothers. We know that the majority of people on college campuses getting their degrees are women. How much longer can that system, population-wise, really exist with the current laws that are in place?
Dealing with this state by state is like dealing with emancipation, one plantation at a time. It doesn't work. We have an Equal Pay Act that doesn't get women paid equally. We have a Pregnancy Discrimination Act that clearly doesn't protect pregnant women. We have a Violence Against Women Act that fails to protect women against violence. We have mandatory restraining orders that are actually optional. And we have a justice system that does not provide equal justice from the lowest court to the Supreme.
All right, so thank you so much for joining us, you guys. What's going to happen now is I have one more question for you guys, and then there are two more entertainment pieces. But just before I kind of get started with that, I did want to take some time to acknowledge that, on International Women's Day, it's important to acknowledge how far we come, but it is also as equally as important to acknowledge how far we still have to go. Let's stand for all women, let's become allies, let's uplift each other. International Women's Right is women's rights for all and not just the select few. So the third question, this one is kind of hard, so I apologize. Does anyone know when the first International Women's Day was? It was a long time ago.
Okay. 1970.
Sorry, can we do hands? Go ahead.
1970.
No, not the. I'm talking about the very first one. I'm gonna give you guys a hint. It was called International Working Women's Day. Go ahead. No. A little. Can I give hints? A little farther back. Go ahead. Yes, 1909. Just want to keep your hands up. Back.
Thanks to the American Association for Arab Women.
Yes, absolutely.
This great event.
Yeah, this is so great, I think, Gary, that we bring all these different segments of our community together for us to share information and to learn so much more about our differences.
Well, and it's evident just in the last State of the City address where we now have a community section, which we never used to. But thanks to you and them and everyone else in the city now, it has its own billing, which is great.
Yes, yes. I just think that there's so much that needs to be done, and we're trying to do our part.
That's it.
Of making this happen. And I think our part is to help to educate one another. I mean, we all know about our own individual segments of our community, and I think it's important that we learn about others.
It's the whole point of it all. So fortunately here in Malden, we're doing just that.
Yeah. I was saying to someone earlier that I feel so blessed as I think about my birth and where I was born and who I was born to, and thinking about, we didn't usually choose that. We could have been born in places that didn't have this love that is felt from neighbor to neighbor.
Yep. My motto here in Malden, you can travel the world in 5 square miles.
Oh, I like that. That's one of them.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah. And I know for me personally, I've just learned so much and have grown so much that I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's just been great.
Yeah. Gary, say something about what's taken place in New Zealand and the horrific, terrible hatred that has been shown in that massacre.
Well, once we heard the news, obviously our thoughts were with the victims and the families, as well as the people in New Zealand. But immediately after that, our thoughts turned to the OCRC on Pleasant Street in Malden. So we contacted Brother Hamid that morning, and we actually went to the mosque that afternoon with Police Chief Kevin Molis, to assure the members that you and I are thinking of them, and we're here for them, and we always will be.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Keep up your great work.
You as well.
All right.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you. So we're here at this International Women's Day celebration, learning more about one another, and hopefully through that learning we can learn, and I know I've already learned that we're so much more alike than we are different.
Well, I'm a first generation born. My mother and father came from Sicily.
Okay.
We might be related.
That's right. That's Hannibal was over there.
Well, I did that Ancestry.com and found out I'm 89% Italian.
Okay, 89%, yes.
And 9% North African.
Okay.
So we may be.
Well, you know Hannibal, don't you?
Yeah.
Hannibal was the great African military leader.
He went all over the place.
And when he conquered sections of Italy, they were there for a long time.
Oh, don't tell me. But anyway, there's two things about the Women's Day. The first one is in 1988, the Kiwanis Clubs International made it possible for women to join Kiwanis.
Okay.
And since that time, it has been the women who have kept the Kiwanis clubs going. And it's not only that club, and I think if you look and you see the Rotary, the Lions, the Elks, and all of those other organizations that now have embraced bringing women into their organizations, it's the women who do all of the work. So that's that part of the women. And as part of the immigrant concern, as immigration is concerned, as I said, my parents are from Sicily. I'm a first generation American, and assimilating into this country is one of the most beautiful things that we can do. And we have to embrace people who are coming here, who want to come here to learn, to work, and to assimilate and to help make this country better and that's the important thing that we want to do.
2 points. One is you mentioned about women and what the Kiwanis Club has done and women in important roles. Both you and I are elected officials. And when we think about, I'm sure as I do, you probably have the same experience, think about the people who have been your major supporters in your political history. Who have they been?
They've been the women.
They've been the women.
Yeah.
And look what we see in the African American community. Black women who are leading the forefront and who have always been behind the scenes.
Well, they've been the ones who have been in charge in the households. They've been the ones who have been in charge in the streets. They're the ones who started the movement for civil rights.
Yeah, and I think also that women have a sensitivity that us guys don't have. So again, we need to learn from one another, and I think celebrations like this help us to do that.
And that's the important part.
Say something about this horrific situation that just occurred in New Zealand, and what that means.
It's the sadness that I think we all have, regardless of what religious aspect it is. It's people. I'm just so disappointed about society. Society, there's no more tolerance. You and I can disagree on a particular issue and then go out and have a cup of coffee.
We can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable.
No,
that's
but
right.
Unfortunately, there's no such thing as being disagreeable. It's now become violence is the way, and and sometimes the the internet putting those, war games on and all of those things, people look at it and sometimes they get to look at it and say, hey, is that real?
And I can remember an incident after 9/11 where I was talking with this man he was from one of the countries in Europe, and I was telling him about how, what a shock it has been to our country to have this terrorism as perpetrated, and shown by the World Trade Center tower, attacks and so forth. His response to me was, it's all new for you Americans. We've been going through this for years.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, I also think that while he was saying it's new for you Americans, I think he was really referring to it was new for you white Americans.
Yeah.
For black Americans, we've always felt that terrorism was only one step away.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, I think that the major problem that we have is it's called intolerance. And we have to be tolerant. Regardless of how people came into this country, we've got to educate them. We've got to make sure that they understand that America has opportunities, and then we want to give them those opportunities. So if you cross the border, quote, illegally, if you're an undocumented immigrant, then try to work within the system. Try to make it so that you're as good as the next person and as tolerant as the next person. And this is the important thing that we can learn from. God bless you.
We may have come over on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. That's right. I got it now. Representative, thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure.
Take care. So we have Counselor at Large Steve Winslow, who's going to talk with us a little bit. Steve, good afternoon. Let me shake that hand once again and ask you, what brings you here today?
Well, I mean, I think I was just talking to Dee Campbell here about how important it is as a community that we make efforts to reach out and engage across the a variety of people. So making sure with different communities we're always engaged in that type of thing. So that's one of the things that's so important, that we take advantage of this opportunity that the Arab Women's Association is offering our community to invite us and to learn about them and meet them. And so it's important for us to take advantage of those opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much for us to learn. Yeah. As we talk with one another about, you may know about your community, I may know about my community, but we need to know about the others, and I think this is a great opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, and certainly, we're all products of our mothers and the women in our lives. So I think that's important to, be supportive of that, and like I say, reaching out and understanding the broader community and getting to know people and faces and that. So that's really what brings me out here. So I'm glad to see that the 7th annual is happening again, and glad to see you here and the other people.
Good to see you, my friend.
All right, Neil.
Thank you very much for spending a few times. Okay, thank you.
The first person that we're going to see, her name is Soumaya Marose. She is a native Morocan dancer that's been dancing all of her life. She started playing the drums when she was 13 at Moroccan weddings in Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and Germany. And she has, studied from teachers in the Middle East, Turkey, North Africa. She was here with us last year, and so many of you loved her that she came back. And then there will also be a Dabke performance. And so Dabke is a traditional folk dance that originates from the Levantine region of the Arab world. And that is Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and parts of Iraq. And so today the Boston Dabke Troupe is going to be with us. They are a group of young college students and young professionals that are dedicated to teaching, learning, and performing Dabke. I know that they do hold weekly lessons for any of you that may be interested in learning after you see this performance, so don't be afraid to touch base with them. I hope you guys have had a good time and enjoy.
cancelled, but I will share with you what they did. So the first dance is a dance from Morocco. It's a folklore from south of Morocco, the region of Sousse. It's like my interpretation of the folklore because there is many different styles. It's a tribe dance and it's called ahwash or shluh. So this was the first dance. And then the second, when I did the spinning, it's called tarsim. It's actually an improvisation on a solo instrument, which was this time the cello. And then the last dance, it was actually, the goal was to show you different style of Egyptian style, but we couldn't really hear the music. I think there is a problem with this. So it was different style of Egyptian style actually. It was like from shabi to tabla which means drums, and then beledi also. So the beledi style is like very figurate and very heavy. So it was to give you a test of different style of Egyptian style, and actually the singer, she said that she's the best dancer ever. Thank you very much. And now blast to the Dabke. And you can, I think you can play the line.
Alright, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt very briefly. I know that there are drinks and pastries after this. There's also a table. It's an initiative by the Boston Architectural College. It is for Malden. It is a public survey. They have flyers in different languages. And it is a survey that will help decide what to do with the land around the Malden Hospital, what you guys would most benefit from, and what you actually want to be there. It'll give you a say as to the new initiatives that are being started in Malden. So you don't have to take the survey right now. It is online, but the flyers are available in different languages for different populations. Donna and Dee are over at the table if you guys have any more questions, and just make sure you grab one on your way out and take the survey so you can have a say. All right, thanks.